Hello, everybody. I'm a French translator working from English into French, and I'm a literary translator. Oh, Mona de Pracontal is my name.
Thanks, Mona. So just to kick things off, can you tell us how you became a literary translator?
Yes, my very first translation was, I was 21, and of all things, it was a Bible for children, which I think was a pretty good omen. And we were two translators, and they gave me the Old Testament part. So I reread my Bible because I didn't know how to go about it. So I just did my fact checking in the Bible, and that was my first translation. Now, I've always been interested in languages, and I loved English. I studied English. When I was a student, you just could not study literary translation. It was no option. So I studied English, and then I went to New York and I did filmmaking there, which is quite different. And then I would do the art translation at college to make some for my department. And then when I got back home in Paris, I just had an opportunity. I was told that Gallimard, I'm talking mid 1980s. Gallimard was developing its young adult literature line, and they were looking for translators. So I applied. They gave me a sample to do, and it was, I don't know if you remember Dungeons and Dragons, le livre dont vous êtes le héros. So anyway, that's how I started, and I did maybe 20 of these, and then I went on from this to real novels for kids, and then from real novel for kids to crime novels, which are very well considered in France, and then on to so-called general literature. And every time, I mean, it was also, I think, a different time than now, because basically I got in touch with publishing companies, and I asked to do a sample, and that's how I managed to get publishers I worked for gradually.
And just a quick follow-on question from that: how did you come to translate some African fiction?
Well, there's a trick in that question, because as a rule, I never translate from a place I don't know. At once I was offered an Ian Rankin's novel, and it was lovely, but all that slang from Glasgow, and I've never set foot there, and I felt I needed to hear it and possibly even to say it a few times. So I did not translate that book. But then I was offered, I don't know which one was the first one. Maybe it was Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's first novel, Purple Hibiscus. And first I felt like, my God, I've never been to Nigeria, so I shouldn't do that. But the story seemed straightforward enough. And so I translated it, and I managed to meet Nigerian people in Paris, in France, who told me how you eat that food, what does it taste, how you say that, how you do that. So basically, the answer to your question is I was offered a book, and I read it, and I decided to do it.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And then people seem to think that, oh, I've done one, so I know Western Africa, which is a bit too, but anyway. And the other thing that was funny about that book is then I tried to approach French speakers from West African country, neighboring country, wanted to ask them, how do you say that in French in your country? And everybody kept saying, we speak French exactly the same way you do. Till I finally found actually the French translator of Kensaro Viva, Samuel Milogo, who told me, no, we don't speak French the way you do. And we worked together a bit for dialogues.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Mona. A further question, a kind of concrete, practical question, which is, do you earn your living solely through literary translation?
You're going to be disappointed, Ruth. Yes, I do. Now, I don't make loads of money, but two things. I live in France where translators, our status is we are considered as authors and we paid royalties. What we paid is in advance on our royalties, which in the event of a bestseller makes a major difference. The other thing is when you work in France from English into French, there's a lot of work out there because one, we translate a lot. There's a good, maybe, I don't want to say figures because I might be wrong, but there's a great percentage of printed literature in France that is translation. And the bigger part there is English language books. And some books are really demanding, really beautiful books. And then you get all those other books. So, like children's series, fantasy, and some are lovely. Generally, they are easier to do. So basically, I've always been lucky enough to be able to balance one, because some books, sometimes a book that's 120 pages takes me as much time and work as a big 600-page one. Mm. So because there's so much being published from English, and because I come from children's literature, I've always been able to balance different kind of books. And I don't mean just children literature versus general literature, because some novels for children are really difficult to translate and have But so that's one thing. And then I've always had a rent control department.
Aha.
Our log that helped. No, but I mean, seriously. And then I've translated some books that got me extra royalty monies, like Donald Westlake or Rick Riordan, all the Percy Jackson, because of the status we have. But for even before that, for years, I was able to make a living just because I would combine easy books and not so easy books. Mm-hmm. You might say, why not do only easy books? Because that's not what we like, right?
Yeah, but you've been able to balance the kind of bestsellers and so on, and kind of passion projects as well.
Yes, I mean, I don't mean just bestsellers, because you don't decide you get a bestseller, and you can, I mean, I've worked for 30 years before getting a bestseller, but just books that are pretty straightforward and easy to translate.
I see. Okay, thank you. And so what advice would you give to anyone who's out there wishing to become a literary translator, listening to you talk about your career?
I'm not sure I'm the best person, because I started a good 35 years ago. Translation was not considered as a real job. You could actually, if you were smart enough to find who is the editor in charge of that book, get in touch with him. But nowadays, I mean, you didn't have all those BAs, MAs in literary translation. You didn't have even a single credit in. I mean, I remember studying English. You just didn't study it. Whereas now, and I think it's not just France. It seems like all of Europe. You have all those BA and Master Professionnel, and translators nowadays are expected to be qualified, to have a degree in translation. And they're expected to do a lot of things. On one, I think my generation, we had less recognition, maybe we had more freedom, but so I think it has changed. I don't think if I were starting my career today, I could do it the way I did it. From like what I can give in terms of advice is secondhand advice. I see how my friends who are in their early 30s, I see how they go about it. More and more, what they do is they become agent and or book scouts. They approach publishers with books, which I find is, you know, um, is different. So yeah.
So are they having to translate samples and take those to publishers?
Yes, I mean, it's always been that it's always when you work on the basis of a sample, but now they're expected to bring a book, not just to say, I'd like to do a sample for you, and if you like my work, maybe you have a book for me, which is how I did it. I mean, I haven't brought books until very recently.
So when you say bring a book, what does that process involve?
That involves finding a novel that nobody has bought before and that might be interesting to the publisher you getting in touch with. And of course, having the contact. I would rather say having the author's contact than the agent. Yes, if you go to the trouble of finding a book, also it's easier for English is not the easiest language to do that because of this culture in English-speaking countries that the minute somebody writes something, they have an agent. So, but if you read a book and with the internet, you find a way of getting in touch with the author and ask him whether the translation rights are available or not. But then if you want to do that, you have to know who you're going to present the book to. And you don't, you have to get in touch with one person. And it has to be a bit, it has to make sense. The one thing that is tough on publishers or editors is to receive manuscripts that have nothing to do with their different lines.
Yeah, so there needs to be a certain amount of research of the market and of the publishers' lists and so on.
Yes, so I don't know. I think for advice that I'm not the best person because I don't think it's very fair that people should go through all that work, which is basically a publisher's work, if you think of it, just to get a chance to be paid. I mean, when you do that work, you don't get finder's fee. That's just the very words are never uttered. So, but then yes, okay, I don't know. And also, you might want to do a special, either a BA or go to a translation school because that is a way to have contacts.
Thank you very much, Mona. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
You're welcome.